All right, ready. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Walker, and I have the honor of serving as SEIU Healthcare's Executive Vice President. We are gathered here today at Extended Care Medics in Ottawa, and would like to thank the Extended Care team for facilitating this space for this very special gathering. I would also like to acknowledge that today we have some of SEIU Healthcare's executives, my partners in the room, John Klein, our Secretary Treasurer, and Sandy Joan, SEIU Nurses President. Also executive board members, Kelly and Elma. And finally, this special event wouldn't be possible without our partners from the federal government and the SEIU members present here today and watching from all across Ontario. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquins and Anishinaabe Nation. These lands are part of the Algonquins of Ontario settlement area, where conversations continue between the Algonquin people and the federal and provincial governments about how to honor and uphold Indigenous rights and relationships with the land. As settlers, whether we've been here for a long, long time or have just come to Canada, whether our families have been here for generations or we just recently come to Canada, we have the responsibility to recognize that we live and work on this land and the histories that have not yet been made right. This acknowledgement is not just a formality. It is a commitment to listening. It is a commitment to learning and to walking together towards justice and reconciliation. As a healthcare union, we know that care and justice are deeply connected. The impacts of colonialism and racism show up every day in our workplaces and in how workers are treated and in the care that patients, residents, and clients receive. Creating truly caring environments means that making sure that every space is rooted in care, is rooted in dignity, respect, and equity. We also hold close the ongoing call for justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people. Their safety, their stories, and their families should never be forgotten. And as we begin this very special announcement today, may we root our work together in respect, accountability, and solidarity with Indigenous people and with all workers and communities fighting for justice and care that truly heals. It is now my honor to welcome to the podium SEIU Healthcare's President, Tyler Downey.
Thank you, Jackie. And good morning, everyone. You know, since it's World Series season, I'm going to start with a baseball analogy. But before I do that, let's go Blue Jays. How about that? You know, in politics, just like baseball, sometimes you strike out. Sometimes you take one on the chin. Sometimes, you know, once in a while you connect, you drive a big home run out on the field. And today, I think it's fair to say that Prime Minister Carney's team is stepping up to the plate to hit a home run for Canadian healthcare workers. We can't always control what's happening south of the border. And lately, there's no shortage of headlines that remind us of that. But what we can control are the choices we make right here at home. We can invest in people, not just in programs. We can turn skills into real careers. We can build strong partnerships between unions, employers, and government, the kind that makes sure no worker is left behind. Because when we invest in workers, we make healthcare stronger. And when we make healthcare stronger, we make Canada stronger. At SEIU, our mission has always been clear: to build strong workers, strong communities, and strong bonds of care. Because there's no stronger than the bond that comes from compassion, from shared struggle, shared hope, and shared purpose. That's why it's such an honor to introduce someone who truly understands that mission. She listened to PSWs who gave their all and then still struggled to make ends meet or retire with dignity after a lifetime of care. And she's done more than just listen. She's acted. Minister Patty Hajdu has taken the time to listen to our healthcare workers, to hear their stories of commitment, of sacrifice, and of the challenges they face every day. Minister Hajdu believes, as we do, that universal public health care is only as strong as the workers on its front lines. And when Canada is the greatest country in the world, but we can always be greater. And when healthcare workers are using food banks or sleeping in their cars or working their entire lives only to retire into poverty, we must do better. That's why this government's commitment matters. It's about action. It's about progress. It's about fairness. And it's about making Canada even stronger by working together. So please join me in welcoming to the podium a true friend of SEIU and all of hardworking healthcare Canadians, Canada's Minister of Jobs and Families, the Honourable Patty Hajdu.
Well, thank you so much, President Downey, for that really generous introduction. And to Jackie, where are you? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Who did a fantastic job the last time we saw each other. I also want to thank Extended Care medics and obviously the members who work here, but the members all across the country who are taking care of the people we love. I think it's really important to remember, and I think you touched on it, Tyler, that care is about connection. And as the person who's both used childcare and care for elders that have, aged at home and then later on in facilities just like this, the kind of care actually contributes to the outcomes for your loved ones. And without that quality care, it makes it really hard for the family members to go to work with peace of mind that the people that they love the most are being cared for. So I want to thank you for what you do every single day. People don't understand the level of emotion that you carry, the stories of loss and loneliness that you listen to, the way that you make every single person you touch feel like they matter. And I can't think of anything more important in these days and ages to make people feel like they matter and that they're seen. And so thank you for what you do every single day. And it's really astonishing, actually, to live in a country like Canada, where if you ask Canadians, or even if you ask foreigners what they think about Canada, the first thing that comes to mind for many, many people is that we have a universal healthcare system, where the need for healthcare should trump the ability to pay. And we work really hard to protect that healthcare system. We work really hard to protect what it represents for all of us, which is a country that fundamentally, despite regional differences, despite political differences, truly believes that we ought to take care of each other and that we are a country that's committed to doing so. And I think, as President rightly said, we've entered a time of deep global uncertainty and change. The United States has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. And as a result, we have to transform our economic strategy here in Canada. And at the same time, we are seeing rapid technological change, which is actually changing the very foundation of the world of work. So these are indeed challenging times, and I'm glad that you recognize that, Tyler. But our government is acting with urgency and with purpose, and we've already begun that work. Recently, the Prime Minister announced a number of workforce measures that will help workers and the industries affected by global trade disruptions adapt to new opportunities and have the supports to do so. A part of these measures includes a reskilling package that ensures Canadian talent is empowered with the tools and the training to thrive today and the confidence to lead tomorrow. We've also made temporary changes to employment insurance and work sharing programs to provide employers and employees with enhanced income supports and the protection of jobs despite economic uncertainty. Because a strong economy protects people and strong people protect our country. And that leads me to today's pre-budget 2025 announcement that will build, protect, and empower Canadian workers through generational investments. First, we are building major infrastructure projects and millions of new homes, and that means that we'll need more skilled workers to get the jobs done. Unions do a phenomenal job of training people, and that's why Budget 2025 will expand the Union Training and Innovation Program with an additional $75 million over 3 years. And this will support apprenticeships in the Red Seal trades and empower unions to train the next generation of Canadian builders. We're not just going to create those jobs, we're going to create pathways to meaningful long-term careers that will really build Canada strong. Secondly, deuxièmement, Pour répondre à la demande urgente de compétences à travers le Canada, le budget 2025 créera un nouveau fonds d'action pour la reconnaissance de titres de compétences étrangères grâce à un financement existant de 900 millions de dollars. En partenariat avec la province et les territoires, ce fonds permettra aux professionnels formés à l'étranger de mettre plus rapidement leur expérience en pratique et mettre l'accent sur le secteur de la santé et de la construction. When we have such talent in our country, it's such a waste to not ensure that people can reach their full potential by using the skills and the training that they've received in other countries. And so we're going to work even faster with provinces and territories so that healthcare professionals from other countries can fully utilize their skills so that we don't lose out on the talent that already exists in this country. Third, to strengthen fairness in the labour market, the government will propose amendments to the Canada Labour Code to limit the use of non-compete agreements in federally regulated sectors. This will strengthen our efforts to build one Canadian economy by promoting mobility, innovation, and opportunity across the country, giving workers the freedom to take their future in their own hands. And finally, as SEIU has often said, care can't wait. And Budget 2025 will introduce a new personal support workers tax credit backed by $1.5 billion over 5 years. Now you hear that clapping, and that's the sound of victory for folks that have worked so hard and lobbied so hard to have their profession recognized as essential to the economy of Canada. This new refundable tax credit will enable eligible PSWs to claim a refundable credit of 5% of eligible earnings, providing support of up to $1,100 per year. And it's a reflection of that critical work that I spoke of in the beginning, that PSWs do on behalf of all of us every single day. Nous nous concentrons sur la construction d'un Canada où les possibilités atteignent chaque coin de notre pays. Pour saisir ces moments, nous devons faire des choix sur la manière dont nous construisons et où nous investissons. So with Budget 2025, this is about investing in people, spending less on things that are not giving us the results we want, and focusing our efforts on building a stronger and a more independent Canada, protecting the people and the values that define us, and empowering every worker to lead in tomorrow's world. Together, we are building Canada strong, and I want to thank SEIU for your constant advocacy and your hard work. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. A round of applause again for the announcement. That was great. Thank you. Minister, on behalf of SEIU, our members, and the hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers across Canada, thank you. The Healthcare Hero Tax Credit is an historic investment. It makes life more affordable for PSWs, and it strengthens the foundation of universal healthcare. SEIU advocated for this, and your government delivered. And as they say, as my grandmother used to say, you make a promise, you keep a promise. And that's what we have today. We thank you again. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you and welcome a proud SEIU member, a fierce advocate for PSWs, and someone who embodies the very best of care work, Kelly Stevenson.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Stevenson, and I've been a proud personal support worker for over 20 years. Thank you. I care. PSWs care. And in those 20 years, I've heard politicians talk and talk about caring. But today, we see what it means when government truly does care. Today, we see what it means when government turn their words into action. The last few years have been struggling for healthcare workers like PSWs like myself. After the rent is paid and the discounted grocery bills have been purchased, PSWs have little to nothing left. I know PSWs who have gone homeless, who are sleeping in their cars, but still show up to work to take care of people's families. It doesn't matter what you call us, PSWs, healthcare aides, home care workers. We are the lowest paid in the healthcare system that can't even run without us. Yet too many of us live near the poverty line. We work shoulder to shoulder with doctors, nurses, technicians, and so many others who have the dignity of a middle-class life. I love that for them. But we too deserve financial security. Times are tough, and we know right now times are tough. I have to say, all healthcare workers have seen patients and residents get sick, grow old, and we've seen our loved ones pass away right in front of us. Losing a loved one is hard, but it's a part of life. And for PSWs, that's a part of our jobs. But with time, we find strength, courage, and we carry on. But there is no bandage when workers lose dignity of work. There is no recovery from loss of purpose. Prime Minister Carney's government sees workers like me. Today, PSW can value when for so long society has told us we were not valuable. Minister, how do I say thanks for investing in us? Thank you for making life a little more affordable. Thank you for having our backs when you said you would have our backs. I just want to say one more thank you in having our backs. The Canada Child Benefit has been there to help mothers raise their children. Federal funding for $10 a day childcare helps those mothers back to work. Canada National School Food Program has been introduced so children can focus on studying instead of the rumbling in their stomachs. Federal funding has recently been delivered to help home care workers without access to a pension to begin saving for their retirement. Nobody said life was supposed to be easy, but I can tell you that all these things help make life just a little bit easier for family in Canada. And today, PSWs and healthcare workers like me have reason to keep doing what we love, a reason to be healthcare workers. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Tyler.
Thank you, Kelly. I want to thank everyone for being part of this historic moment, a moment that's about workers, about care, and about Canada's future. This is what partnership looks like. This is what progress looks like. And together, this is how we build the kind of country we can all be proud of. Thank you, Minister Hajdu, and I believe we're going to open it up for any questions.
Yeah, so if any media that is here, if they could just state the outlet that they're from, and then just one question, one follow-up, and yeah.
Hi there, Minister Hajdu. Marina von Stackelberg with CBC News. Thanks for taking our questions. Are measures like the ones that you've announced today an admission that because of the trade war, there will be rough economic times ahead for Canadians?
Well, I think everyone around the world is seeing the fracture in global trading, and Canada's been in the middle of trying to negotiate better deals with the United States in a number of very hard-hit sectors. So I don't think anyone's denying that this is profoundly difficult for Canadians, and there's a lot of anxiety and fear out there. Some of the things I've announced today are things, in fact, all of the things I've announced today are things that actually members and stakeholders have advocated for. I think that another hallmark of a good government is a government that works with partners. So SEIU, this is not new work. This is work that started in 2023. In fact, 3 provinces signed on for wage increases in 2023 through an investment then to better compensate personal support workers, but we did not arrive at agreements with the remaining provinces. And so we're moving forward because, as the President says, care can't wait, and this is an opportunity to get money in the hands of the workers immediately through a tax credit. In terms of the union training announcement, building trades are doing a phenomenal job training the next generation of skilled Red Seal workers. My son is one, actually, and has come from a position in unregulated welding to being a Red Seal crane operator, and, a big earner, somebody who has regular and steady work and is contributing to building the things that we need in our region. And that's the vision of the enhanced UTIP funding. So we recognize these are difficult times, but there are things we can't control and there are things that we can. And one of the things that we can control is how we invest in our people.
So President Trump imposed an additional tariff even after Ontario agreed to pull its ad. Does this suggest that there's nothing to be gained from backing down from the president? And do you think Ontario's ad was a mistake?
Well, I can say, look, I think these are challenging times in terms of the global shift in trade and the global shift in the way that the Americans are using, tariffs as a way to change the landscape of trade for their country. And what I can say is there are things we can't control. We cannot control the decisions that another country will make. But what we can control is how we're going to invest in our country and invest in the capacity of our country to diversify our trade, to build major projects, to train skilled workers for areas where there are workforce shortages, and to ensure that people are compensated fairly and stay attached to the workforce in a way that helps families reach their full potential. We talked about the importance of care for the individuals receiving that care. I alluded to this in my remarks, but without the kinds of skilled people that are standing behind me to take care of our aging family members in early childhood education, our young children, without a national child care plan that actually makes child care affordable, we actually really defeat our own agenda in terms of increasing our productivity. We need people to be able to get out there and work and reach their full potential. And in order to do that, everybody has to feel like they have an important role to play and has to be compensated fairly.
But do you think Ontario's ad was a mistake?
What I can say is, look, these are difficult negotiations, and I'm not the minister responsible for those negotiations, but I think people have been clear and have been very clear with their direction to our government, which is to control the things we can and to focus on Canadians and the outcomes for Canadians, and that's what we're doing.
Craig Lord with the Canadian Press. The Liberal government has announced a number of plans even before these past few weeks to build a lot of infrastructure, a lot of homes. When we talk about foreign credential recognition, do you believe that the Liberal government's agenda to build can be achieved solely through workers who are already here and who just need to do more training or reskilling, or will we need to bring in workers to achieve the kind of building Liberals are looking for?
Well, look, I think the hope is that we can have as much Canadian labor as possible, and unions expect us to do that. And we'll be working with the skilled trades unions, in particular the Canadian Building Trades Union, to make sure that Canadians are positioned first and foremost to take advantage of those jobs. But we also need to make sure that we continue to attract to promote, first of all, and then attract people to the trades and make sure they make it through the entire training process. Getting to a Red Seal apprentice, getting through the Red Seal apprenticeship program and getting your Red Seal in a variety of professions is actually very challenging. It's challenging from a time perspective. It can be challenging financially, and depending on the region of the country or the area that you live in Canada, it can be challenging in terms of accessing that training. And today's announcement on UTIP, on union training money, means that unions will have more flexibility in how they can actually access those apprentices and make sure they finish their studies so that they too can receive that Red Seal.
Last week, the Industrial Relations Board ruled that the federal government was appropriate in using Section 107 of the Labor Code to interrupt the holiday Canada Post strike last year. As we are approaching the holidays again and we are in a rotating strike, is it an approach the government is considering again?
Well, look, I think that the union and the corporation have to work together on what the future of Canada Post looks like and how we ensure that Canada Post continues to adapt and modernize in a time where the way we communicate with each other is dramatically changing. Federal mediators are working with the two parties, and it's my expectation that the parties work sincerely to find a deal that works for them.
If there are no further questions, that concludes the announcement.
Thank you very much, everyone.